Hey everyone, welcome to Carissa's Bread Basket. I'm Carissa, and today I'm going to show you how to make an easy sourdough discard soft loaf. And all the ingredients are here, and I'm just going to show you exactly what to do. You can find this recipe on farmhouseonboone.com, except it is actually a discard rolls recipe. I use that one for my bread recipe and for my rolls. Next Friday, I will be posting about the rolls and showing you guys how I do that. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing that I do is I take my dry yeast, and I do not like using rapid. For some reason, I got used to using just the regular dry yeast, and that's just what I use. But we're going to use 4.5 teaspoons or 2 packets. We're actually doubling the recipe that's on Farmhouse on Boone, and I usually get either 2 loaves out of this, or I get a loaf and 8 rolls or 16 rolls. So let's go ahead and put that in here. I'm going to use my KitchenAid. Just makes it go faster. You can mix it and knead it if you want to, but this is what I like to do. All right, so there's 2 and 3, 4, and then we're going to do a half. All right, so with this recipe, you are going to use yeast because we are using discard. We're not using an active starter. It's actually going to be the discard. I was able to produce this much yesterday by discarding and feeding my starter, and then I did it again. I was able to get this much in one day, which is absolutely amazing. All right, and then the next thing I like to do is add half of a cup of sugar, and I use the sugar cane. I get a bag of it at Walmart. It calls for a half a cup. I usually do just a little bit more than that, just because it tastes yummier. So you're going to put that in with your yeast. And then I have a cup and a half of warm water. Now you want this to be around 104 to 108 degrees. And we are a little bit on the not warm enough side, so we're going to heat this up really quick. All right, and then the other ingredients that I have, we're going to use a cup of discard. And then we have a stick of melted butter or half a cup of melted butter. And then we're going to use 2 teaspoons of salt. All right, we'll see where this is at. It doesn't take it long. That is for sure. All right, so should be just about right. I'm going to go ahead and pour my discard into my half a cup, or my cup, measuring cup. And we're going to set this to the side. This is actually going to go in at the same time as the butter, but we have to let the yeast develop and grow first. And so usually what we do is we add the water to the yeast and sugar, and then you're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes is usually what it takes. And so if you get this too hot, you're actually going to kill the yeast. So make sure that you're below 110 degrees, and that's usually just right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pour our water in. I'm going to take my handy dandy little spatula here, and we're going to stir that up. And there's no reason to get another one because it's not going to hurt anything. It's all getting ready to go together anyways. So you just want that to dissolve. And then we're going to let this sit for about 5 minutes. And I will show you what it looks like. So just to recap, we've got 4.5 teaspoons of yeast, dry active yeast. We have a little over half a cup of sugar. And then we have a cup and a half of water, non-chlorinated water. It's very important. All right, we'll see you in 5 minutes. I forgot to mention, you do want to cover that with a plate or something, just to keep it, keep anything from falling in or anything like that. But you do want it to look like foam. It should look foamy, and that's how you know that it's ready. So we're going to go ahead and add our 1 cup of sourdough discard. And with your melted butter, you want to make it melted. I do it either on the stove or in the microwave, but you also want it to cool. You have to make sure that it's not above 110. You want it to be, below that temperature, or else it's going to affect the rise, because it will affect the yeast. It could actually kill it if it's too hot, so just keep that in mind. Sometimes I'll put an ice pack underneath my melted butter just to cool it off faster. But yeah. So we're just going to stir this together. The next thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and stir this a little bit, either with a spoon or with a little spatula is fine. You just want to break up that discard a little bit more, make sure that it's good and dissolved. And it's not going to be perfectly dissolved, but just better. And then this is where I like to add my salt. And the Farmhouse on Boone recipe for 8 rolls, it calls for half of a teaspoon. And so doubled would be 1 teaspoon, but I like to add 2 teaspoons. It just enhances the flavor, and it does not make it too salty. I think it makes it really, really good. And then we're just going to let that stir. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is add our flour. And I like to do a mix of bread flour and all-purpose flour. And so I do 3 cups of bread flour and 2 cups of the all-purpose flour. I just like the way that it turns out better. The Farmhouse on Boone recipe, if you look at that, it does call for all-purpose. So just keep that in mind. So what I like to do is alternate between the two. So I'll do a cup of the bread flour, and then we'll do a cup of the all-purpose. How many times can I say both of those words? I do want to say too, I like the King Arthur brand for the starter with the whole wheat, and I also like it for my bread. And most of the time you can find that at Walmart. But if you can't, I don't know if you live close to a Deerbergs, but if you do, that's another place that carries the King Arthur. Sam's carries the bread flour, so I can get that a little bit cheaper there. So just keep that in mind. And if you can't find that brand, all the other brands are fine too. I have used Walmart brand on the bread flour and the all-purpose, and it works just fine. So, all right, so let me get one more of our bread flour. This is 5 cups total, and you can use all bread flour if you want to. It's just what you prefer, and you can experiment and see what you like. Got that all over me. All right, so there's our 5 cups. We're going to put this in, and then we will stir, and I will let you know what it looks like in just a few minutes. After you add your flour, you're going to want to put your setting on just stir on your KitchenAid, because it's going to stir the dough together. And then after about 2 minutes, you're going to set it to the next setting, which is just the number 2. And that will start kneading the dough. After a couple minutes, you may notice that the dough, some of it is still sticking to the sides of the bowl. You can just take a small spatula and just scrape that off, and then it will become incorporated, which is what you want. Be careful doing this, because it could get a hold of it if you're not careful. I also want to say, if you're having a stressful day, This is pretty relaxing if you sit and watch this process and watch this dough come together. In about 8 minutes. And so I'm going to go ahead and check this and see where we are. I think it's going to be perfect. What you want to do is to do a window pane test. And if you played with Play-Doh whenever you were a kid, that's kind of what the texture, what it reminds me of. It's just like Play-Doh. It's real pliable, moldable, very bouncy. You're not going to tear it whenever you pull it. It's actually going to stretch. And that's what you want. But there's something called the window pane test. And so I'm going to show you what that means. What you're going to do is just take a little piece of it, and you can even do this inside of the mixer. It's not a problem. But you just pull it up, and then you want to make sure that it's not tearing. I mean, it can tear a little bit, but it doesn't tear very easily. And you can see the sunlight coming through it. That's what you want. And so this is actually, it feels perfect. And you can just tell it's just kind of like a Play-Doh. So this looks like the gluten structure is really, really good. And if you want to, you can go ahead and knead it some more. It's not going to hurt anything. Or if you do end up doing it by hand, usually 6 to 8 minutes is how long it takes. Sometimes less than that. It just depends. But the next step is to take a big bowl. And I use avocado oil. And you just want to spray this inside of here. My family laughs at me because of how far away I hold the spray bottle. So this one's for you, Anthony. All right. And so I'm going to go ahead and spray my lid. Since this is a double batch, sometimes it expands that far. Sometimes not. Sometimes it doesn't go too crazy. But then, yeah, so what you're going to do is just put it in your bowl. And you're going to let it sit. Usually it takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Sometimes it takes an hour. It depends on how warm your house is. If your house is 80, it'll probably take an hour to 1.5 hours. So, but if your house is cold like mine, as my daughter always says, it's freezing, then it may take a little bit longer. But I'm going to set a timer for about an hour. We're going to check it. You want this to double in size, so it's going to be really poofy and expand. And so, all right. See you guys in a little bit. All right, it's been about 1.5 hours, somewhere in there, and my house temperature is right at about 73, 74, just to give you kind of an idea. And it is doubled, nice and poofy. So we're going to punch this down. And then this actually makes 2 loaves. And so what we're going to do is we're going to separate it into 2. And then I have butter, and I really recommend that you use butter to put in your pans more than oil, because oil tends to burn. And this just gives it a really nice crust, gives your bread a nice crust. So go ahead and use a pastry brush. Sorry about the banging, but we're going to use a pastry brush. Make sure you get all of the corners and all of the sides and everything. And then what's going to happen is you're going to put the other pan, that's why I've got 4 pans total, is because you're going to put this one on top of it while it sits and rises again for another 30 minutes or so. Sometimes I let it sit for an hour. It just depends. So yeah. So we got that ready. We're gonna go and do the other one. It's really, really pretty outside too. The weather, the heat was crazy for the last few days. And now it's broken and it's so nice, so pretty. Glad for that. All right, and same thing. I'm gonna do just this part because it will rise above the other pan. So you want to make sure that you got this nice and greased as well. All right, so I'm gonna grab a knife because we're gonna divide this as evenly as we can between the two. So what I like to do is just go straight down the middle and divide. And I may surprise you when I shape this, but this dough is beautiful. It's just perfect the way that it is. So, but I just kind of like doing it like this. And then what I end up doing is putting it in the pan. And you will have some air bubbles in there, so you just want to press those out. But it fills about half the pan, just maybe a little bit more than half. And I just press it in, kind of mold it into the corners. And then you're just going to put the other pan on top. And then we'll let that sit and do the same thing to this one. I love that. It's so perfect. So, so perfect. All right. And you can tell that to me, it reminds me of Play-Doh. So we're going to stretch this out and put it in our pan loaf. Press the bubbles out and then just press it into place. All right. And we'll set this on top. I like setting these by my stove. So I would recommend that you do that. Even whenever I was letting it rise the first time, just put this next to your stove or on top of your stove. It's perfectly fine. All right. We're going to let these sit for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then we're just going to see where they're at. Okay, so it's been right at about an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off. I have not looked at these because sometimes that can be a bad idea if you need to put them back on if they're not ready to be baked yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do a reveal here. Ta-da! All right, and you do want to be careful because sometimes these can deflate because of how poofy that they are. This one's got a bubble in it. All right, so I like to take, just lost my train of thought here. I like to take the lane and I like to make a line down the middle. So it's like a split loaf of bread. I started doing that, and since I've done it, I absolutely love it. So I'm going to take this and just make a slice down the middle. I go about half an inch down, but I go all the way through to the other side. I'm a little bit concerned to do that one this way just because of that air bubble. We'll see. I may go ahead and do it and see what happens. So I've got my oven preheating to 375 right now. And so we're getting ready to put these in. All right, we're going to try this one. We will see what happens. I'm a little nervous. And these work, the lane works a whole lot better on the sourdough bread because it's been refrigerated, been cold proof. This is just fresh dough, so it doesn't work as well. But I still like to do the split. I just like it better. So the next step after this is to put it in the preheated oven, 375. And I usually set my timer for 15 minutes, and then I let it bake, and then I check it. And then I actually turn them. My oven, I have to do that. It just makes it turn out better. If I'm watching it, I turn it, and then I turn it again if it needs to bake some more. These need to reach a temperature of 200. And so we're going to put these in and let them bake in about 15 minutes, and then we'll check them and see what the temperature is doing, which is not going to be close to being ready then. It usually takes about 30-35 minutes for the bread. So, all right, so I'm going to put these in. All right, it's been 15 minutes, so we're going to see what they look like. Oh, yeah. Gorgeous. I'm going to remember that it goes the other way next time. All right, so what we're going to do, I'm going to put a piece of aluminum foil in the bottom, on the bottom rack, and then we're going to put them back in. And we're going to do 10 minutes this time. All right. So I'm going to spin them around. There we go. These are looking great. All right, so 10 more minutes, and then we'll check them again. Okay, it's been 10 minutes, so we're going to check and see what the temperature is now. If they're not quite to 200, then I'm actually going to put some aluminum foil on the top because it's going to start getting too brown. So I'm just going to stick my digital thermometer in to the end. And it is like right there, 198, 199. So then I'm going to go ahead and stick it down through the middle. See where this gets. Okay, so we're above it. We're at like 201. So I think that we are good to call this one for sure. But then again, I see the center and it's not quite brown in the middle, but it doesn't have to be like brown like the outer crust, but just a little bit more. We might put it in here for just a few more minutes, and then I'll check this other one. And we'll see where it's at. And this actually looks a little bit bigger, so it may need a little bit longer too. We'll see. Yeah. Yep, we got a ways to go on this one. So just have to check it and see where you're at, and then just go from there. So we're going to go ahead, and I am going to put this aluminum foil that's down here. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the top. Oh. And don't burn yourself while you do this. All right, so it was about 5 minutes on this one, and then about 10 minutes for this one. But they are finished. They are ready to go. And so I've already put butter on this one, but what you want to do is take melted butter, and it's just stick butter. I don't use margarine or anything like that. I like the real deal. It's better for us anyways, actually. So just rub that on, let that melt inside there, and it just is absolutely beautiful, and it's delicious too. So yeah, so the temperature was 200 whenever that was finished, and so now we're going to go ahead and take this out. The way that I do this, I just get another hot pad and then carefully lay it over on that and then kind of shake it out. Uh-oh. Well, this one's being stubborn. Okay. There you go. I don't know why that happened, but I must have missed a couple spots with butter on the inside. So yeah, so there you go. We have two beautiful loaves, and this is actually my favorite. I usually do this with butter and blackberry jelly in the morning for breakfast, and with a couple of eggs. It's absolutely delicious, and it's good for you. The sourdough discard still has beneficial bacteria in it there for you, for your gut health. And so it's great. It's wonderful for you, and it's delicious. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and just keep following me. I'll be posting every Friday. Sometimes I'll surprise you during the week and have another post as well. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.